All right, this is the monthly showcase of Wikimedia engineering community team. And, well, without further ado, Andre, do you want to start explaining what's the status of Fabricator?
Okay, so let me summarize the last 4 weeks, what has happened in this month. We have the production instance up, running on fabricator.wikimedia.org with all the content from the previous labs instance imported. Smaller or several items that got fixed. Inbound email is working. We have access restriction based on project membership. We have the certificate for a separate domain to upload files to. We sorted out with legal footer requirements, like displaying a license and whatever. Yubi and Daniel set up the lab's test instance. Kim has been helping a lot with documentation. I've given a video talk on the very basics of Fabricator, which is now on YouTube and so. And Helder and Reedy have fixed or made the tracked template on Wiki, support querying the Fabricator API, and set up the interwiki link to support that. The last 2 weeks, there have less things happened because Chase was on holidays and then was another week away, and I was part-time. So yeah, I think that's the summary. What's left to enable registration for everybody right now is finishing the LDAP and single user login configuration. Chase yesterday said that there's still something smaller to sort out. And our OAuth provider has not been merged upstream yet. Upstream said they're pretty busy with other stuff. So as the last review by upstream was only smaller things, we will likely deploy it very soon to finally enable registration for everybody. That's a quick summary.
Okay. Let me take a chance to just show some screens. Oops. If I can, of course. So these are related to tasks that I've been working on. Oh my, that's a bit too much for my laptop, I think. Doesn't want to share. Why?
What distro and window manager are you running anyway?
Oh wait. Okay.
Looks like
the Infinite Summoner distro.
No, it's okay. I'll just do things one by one. Rachel is calling me. I don't know why. Can someone check with? Okay, no. Anyway, well, let me just continue. Rachel should also have the invitation, so she should be able to join. What distro? Well, I'm using Debian, and I realized that I haven't been sharing a screen for a while, so I don't know if I should. Anyway, I will just mention then, without trying to share screen, that I've been working on the Fabricator homepage. I've also been here. Oh gosh.
Yeah, if you want to pause for a second, I think Rachel probably can't join now that the Hangout has started, and you have to explicitly invite her.
Ah, okay. Okay, that's new. So let me see. I didn't know this.
That's what I've heard from Chip. I haven't actually. It's one of the quirks of Hangouts on air.
Especially when you are the only person that is trying to speak and trying to invite people. Okay, so I sent her an invitation. In the meantime, let me see if this works or not, because I would really want to show this. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, works.
Okay, very good. So, well, basically, we have the Fabricator page in Mediawiki.org. This is the landing page for anything related to Fabricator. Here we explain basically the Fabricator Wikimedia.org instance. There's also an explanation about the instance in Labs, which is just to learn and play with. We also have the migration timeline, where you can see these are the big items. There's many more smaller tasks, but these are the big ones that really need to be completed. And here you have well, basically the status of all the tasks and what's coming in the future. And point number 13, it's around June 2015. So it's really a timeline, a midterm timeline as well. There's some instructions to get started and how to get involved. And then here we have the help that I think it addresses what until now has been the usual questions coming from new users. And we hope it's useful. Although, well, I think also Fabricator most of the times can be used as long as some things are not obvious, but if you just try a bit further, a bit harder, then you understand it. But for some, here in the help, we're also documenting on processes, for instance, how to request a project, etc. We have also this document, which is a quite exhaustive comparison of Fabricator versus Bugzilla, also explaining what features do we have now with Fabricator, what features actually are going to miss from Bugzilla. And we also have details about the migration. So specifically, which fields are we going to be migrated, or which fields are going to be available just as part of the text description, and which fields are not going to be migrated. Yeah, so this should also address the questions of, I would say, 95% of Bugzilla users. And as we get new questions, we try to answer them here. And well, just documenting a bit the permissions. Basically bootstrapping our documentation. And this is how Fabricator looks today. And I see that Chase, for instance, has done quite a lot already this morning, so we'll have a chance to read that later. Yeah, so that's the bit I wanted to show about. Oops. All right. So, any questions or comments about Fabricator in general? Nope. Andrew, do you have other topics you want to discuss today?
Not really, no. I've been mostly busy with Fabricator. I can just mention for everybody's information, there's gonna be a bug day in, I think, 10 days, or no, on the 8th it is, about a new PDF renderer, and Nemo is organizing this, which is pretty nice. But that's all from my side.
Okay.
That's really great. I'm glad that a volunteer is organizing this, and also someone who has a lot of expertise and knows a lot about who's working on what.
Okay. Sumana, do you want to report in? And in the meantime, I'll try to get Rachel in.
Hi there, folks. So I returned from my vacation on September 10th. And very soon after that announced that I'll be leaving the Wikimedia Foundation. And in fact, today is my last day. I'm grateful to be able to be in this showcase here. So I've been doing a lot of just sort of cleanup and wrap up, looking at things that were in my inbox and delegating them or forwarding them or making notes and so on. And one thing that I'm just going to be finishing up. Oh, Hi, Rachel. Hi, glad to see you. So for instance, I bundled up a bunch of emails and posts that I had sent to various outreach program for women lists, alumni and current interns and mentors and so on, and I spread those to other people in the open source community, and it'll probably turn into an Open Hatch blog post, for instance. And one thing that I did earlier today is I sent a note to Kim and Rob about some thoughts on what aspects of interns and internships seem to correlate with interns sticking around or not sticking around, and I may discuss those with Kim and Rob later after this hangout, after this on-air meeting. And the last thing is that I've had a little bit of communication with people that I'll try to sum up into a WikiTechL post before I go today on code review, specifically on the code review backlog, how this is different from the past, whether there's been some kind of spike, and some recommendations. And one recommendation that I will be making that I did want to mention here right now is, evidently, it made a difference, at least anecdotally, last year when I sometimes, just as a way of whiling away a few minutes or a few hours, went through Garrett, looked at changes that hadn't been touched for a while, and asked individual reviewers, most of whom are not big names in the Mediawiki technical community necessarily, to review those patch sets. That power of personal invitation made individual developers who didn't think of themselves as reviewers as people who could potentially review. And although that is sometimes a very high-touch activity, sometimes the power of that kind of personal invitation is really key. I think we've seen this over and over again in our technical community when it comes to events, when it comes to hackathons, when it comes to asking for scholarships, when it comes to applying for jobs, when it comes to applying for maintainership, when it comes to even reviewing individual patch sets, and on the more newbie level, things like contributing a first patch or giving a bug report or speaking up in IRC. People need to feel like this is a thing they can do, and general propaganda that is true about how this is something you can do and we want you to do it is only half of the equation. We need for that foundation to be there, but the power of personal invitation of not just marketing but sales is also important. And the high-touch work that I did over the past 4 years and that we are sometimes continuing to do, I think does need to be continued. I stopped personally going through Garrett and occasionally, not super systematically, but evidently somewhat consistently, inviting individual developers to review individual patch sets when I changed jobs in the last year. So I think that may be something that's made a difference here, and it's certainly something that we need to do if we want to increase our bench strength. So that is also, I think, I think it reflects when thinking about these sorts of high-touch activities is what could we do to automate this? And although there's some role for automation, I think there's also a role of actual personal invitation that makes someone feel like an individual person is saying to them, I think you could help the community by adding your perspective to this change set, and possibly reminding them, reassuring them that an inadequate review is still better than nothing, and that an opinion like, I skimmed this and nothing looked terrible to me, is still a useful thing to say. So I wanted to mention that in this context in case we wanted to discuss it a little bit, and also for the benefit of anybody who's actually watching this outside of this meeting, because you have the power, not just the people in this meeting, but anyone in the larger community also has the power to do this, to say to individuals who are a bit shy, who have never reviewed before, who don't think of themselves as reviewers, yes, you could help here by contributing even a novice code review. And we have guides on how to help do that.
All right. Thank you. Actually, there's something that I've been working this month is nailing down these metrics about Gerrit code review. And I just want to show it. The URL can be found in the engineering community team page. Yeah, so basically, I now trust all these metrics because we have been reviewing them extensively. And yes, basically, there's a lot of work to do there. And one of the areas where we have committed to analyze and try to bring some recommendations is precisely in this, in being better at dealing with code contributions, gifts, as Sumana reminds us. These are gifts from people, from contributors. How to review those properly and be more effective. All right, Rachel, hello. So, do you want to explain the situation with the Mediawiki Developer Summit?
Sure. So this last month we opened registration for the Mediawiki Developer Summit. We have, last time I checked, it was around 55 or 60 people signed up. Maybe less than 10 are outside of the foundation, but still a good mix of people. And yeah, so currently we're just having open registration, and then as soon as I'm probably going to chase people around from the foundation a bit more to actually register, and also asked for nominations of people from the community who've been working on in the Mediawiki space who might be good fits to come. I actually haven't received any nominations, but it's probably going to be smaller than we originally planned. So with the venue, we estimated 200 people because at that point it was supposed to be a mix between a hackathon, tech days, and the architecture summit. And we aren't getting as many hackathon-specific people. So I think it will just be the majority of engineering plus a handful of people from the community. So I'm guessing it will be closer to like 160. But everything is all set logistically for it, and just counting the registrations as they come in.
All right, well, let's see. Oops, that was too fast now. I just wanted to say that maybe it's a bit too soon to see how many people we get out of the foundation, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess one of the things, so we sponsor, how many people did we sponsor last year to come to the Architecture Summit?
If I had to guess, I think it's around 20. I can actually find the actual number though.
I think it was about 20, yes.
We may, I'm trying to think if we made it clearer last year that we were going to be sponsoring travel and the whole bit.
Well, last year what we did is we just identified a list of people and reached out to them directly and said, you people are invited to the summit, can you come? And this year it's different, it's saying, if you want to come, then you register. So, yeah,
we'll have to, we should probably do more, we should probably put together the list. Okay, got it.
The power of personal invitation.
I can put together a list of the people that we invited last year, and I can put together the list of people that have already registered who are not from the foundation and send it out to this group, and we can, cross-check that and see.
Yep, makes sense.
Rachel, do you want to explain other goals that you had this month?
Sure. Let's see. So a good piece of progress is that I now have tech talks scheduled through the beginning of November, occurring every 2 weeks. And the nomination idea worked really well, so I went and asked a bunch of people to nominate tech talks, and I got a lot of interesting ideas, and then a couple came from other places as well. Eric asked for one, and people, I think one person suggested that they do their own tech talk, but basically asking people in the community or in the foundation to nominate what they want to hear is a great way. So if you look on project calendar under how to schedule an event, And then under Tech Talks, the first link is past Tech Talks and future proposals. And so eventually I'm going to just send this link out and have it be public, but it's where I track ideas for future Tech Talks and Tech Talks that are scheduled and the dates that they're scheduled for. So that's been going really well. It took a little while to get started because I think it takes a little lag time. People need a couple weeks to agree to do a Tech Talk, but now that we're talking so far in the future, it's a lot easier to get people to agree to do them. So we shouldn't miss a Tech Talk. And also on Project Calendar, under how to schedule an event, I've done a step-by-step how to run a Tech Talk. So there's, I think, 13 steps beforehand and 5 steps on the day of, and they every time I run a Tech Talk, I go through the steps and add any new steps that need to be added, and I incorporated some feedback that you, Rabla, gave at one point after a Tech Talk, and anytime anybody requests something different to be done or a new step to be added, I just add it there to make sure that it doesn't get skipped next time and that somebody else could recreate it if they wanted to. So my plan is to do that every time I run a new type of event. I'll write the steps out that I take to make the event happen, and then add things in as we find ways to improve. So it kind of becomes more automatic and less recreating it each time. So that's going well too. Also on how to schedule an event, I think under Hackathon, let's see, maybe somewhere else. Oh yeah, I forget where I put this, but I'll make sure it's front and center. I put all the lessons learned from the hackathon in London, and the one that I sent to Ellie and Garfield, just about how we could improve internally and logistics. I edited a bit to take out a couple names and stuff, but otherwise it's the same thing that we sent to Eric and Ellie and Garfield. And we have a meetup on October 22nd, which Chris M. is flying into San Francisco for. It's exploratory testing for complex systems, lessons from Cloud Foundry, and it sounds like people are really excited about it. We have a large number of people registered on the meetup site, so it should be a pretty big event. And I've been working with HR and legal on the friendly space policy. They are starting to realize that that if anything happens anywhere in the wiki world where people feel uncomfortable, then they potentially can approach us and ask us to deal with it, and we don't. So even if it's just, you know, there's been some uncomfortable stuff going on over email, and then now everybody's in the same location. Our legal team or our HR team or even me will get approached and told about the situation and asked to deal with it. And so it's important that we have a policy to figure out what to do when people actually approach us, because right now the friendly space policy is very tailored towards one specific event, and if you're asked to leave that one specific event, then you leave that event and then it ends there, more or less. But what happens if we need to, for example, lifetime ban people from events? Is that something we're willing to do? Would we keep a list of people that are banned forever from events? And so those are some things that legal is thinking about, and also exactly like a list of steps to take in case we do get a complaint that's serious, because now, you know, I mean, there may be a situation where you have to do more than just ask somebody to leave an event. And the last update I have is about the France Hackathon, which is basically that there is no update. I know that some people on the French team are moving or changing jobs, and I think I'm not actually sure. I followed up with them last week and haven't heard back from them about the status. I mean, if they've picked a location or a venue, I know they were looking at some, but I'm hoping that we hear more soon, and I will continue to follow up with them. And I think that's everything that I have for now.
So I'd like to jump in a moment and say, first off, this all sounds great. I'm really glad you're working on this. I also did a small dance. I don't know if you could see it when when I heard you say basically that every time you do an event, you are writing up how that event is done. That's exactly the kind of approach that I love to see us taking. Not only do we do this work, but we enable other people in the future at the foundation or elsewhere to copy and adapt what we do. And this is great. I also wanted to mention, so thank you so much for reminding us that there's that nomination page for the Tech Talks. I went and nominated someone while you were speaking. Also, I think another place that might be a goldmine for getting future Tech Talks is asking our somewhat more successful Google Summer of Code and OPW interns to give talks about their work. It might be that a collection of like lightning talks from several of them might be a good way to go, but for some of them, they've done things that are big enough that they really ought to be individual talks. And so, for instance, I know we've now hired him, but Bartosz Matmarex should totally give a tech talk about skins.
Sure,
and
yeah.
This
is actually something I very briefly discussed is doing tech talks with the students. It didn't take off yet, but it's definitely something that we've discussed.
Sure, yeah. When it comes to the friendly space policy, I think it's really good that we are considering the fact that we are already being asked, even without a policy saying you can come to us to talk about it, we are already just de facto being asked to do this emotional labor and to deal with these kinds of interpersonal issues. And it's really natural. We are basically the only, or sort of the top authority in a lot of ways, and we are the people who technically can do certain kinds of banning. Personally, approximately every organization in the world that gets to a certain size and a certain level of influence is going to have to deal with that tiny edge case of people who have just shown that they cannot deal with other people in a collaborative and constructive manner. And yeah, they're probably, in my opinion, I say this on my last day at the foundation, there probably will be, at some future point, I think, a kind of perma-blacklist of people who just should not be allowed into any official Wikimedia activity. I think one huge difficulty then, of course, that springs up is how do we propagate that list in a sensitive and collaborative manner to all the people who run Wikimedia-related activities, including people who don't contact us before planning such an activity, because as there should be, there are going to be people just springing up grassroots with Wikimedia-related meetups and stuff just all around the world. And yeah. I would advise one organization that we should really strongly consider collaborating with as we're thinking through these issues is the ADA Initiative, because the ADA Initiative is really sensitive to these and has thought a lot about issues around codes of conduct, anti-harassment policy. As you know, the ADA Initiative wrote the original code of conduct anti-harassment policy that I reused and modified slightly to turn into our friendly space policy. And I think that would be a great resource in terms of having someone else to think through how this works in an open, how to balance these different needs in open communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim is saying that we need to wrap up. The only issue is that I think there becomes a legal issue. I briefly talked to Lewis about this, and I don't fully understand it yet, but keeping a list of names actually is, a blacklist list of names actually can cause a lot of problems, so we have to be really careful about the way we do it, which is why legal is taking the lead on that side of everything.
Sure.
So yes, indeed, we are trying to keep these meetings a bit shorter. So let me just point to a couple of things. So we announced our participation in outreach program for women. And two things. Well, one thing is that the submission period is open, so until the 22nd of October, women from all the world can apply. Well, also transgender, genderqueer, etc. And we have this landing page with several project ideas. Candidates can present their own. In practice, with such a short notice, it's not easy to find mentors for that. But anyway, here we have, as said, especially from the language team, this time they are very active. We have many project ideas, but still no candidates as of today. Although some of them they have already asked in the Wikitech mailing list, and we have got a few candidates or potential candidates contacting us. So I guess in the next weeks we will see candidates, and then we will go for the selection. And then another task done this month was helping the Wiki release team, the Mediawiki Tarball release, so to say, Mark and Marcus. They are, I mean, this is not work I did, this is work that they have done. I'm just trying to help them, working with Fabricator and getting their work organized. And they have basically two fronts. One front is the release, so there's many tasks that start with release, and this is, guess what, it's closely related to the release of Mediawiki, of Mediawiki. But then they also have the user group front, which is the community aspect. And these are a set of activities that basically try to create and consolidate a user group of Mediawiki developers or strong users, stakeholders, etc., in order to develop activities or perhaps fund development on areas that are not a top priority for the foundation. And finally, the architecture. Okay, that was the wrong link. Let me just. Here, the architecture team. Basically, what we are doing is every meeting, every minutes, every piece of information that team or Brian, the architecture committee, publishes, we try to convert that into actions, into tasks in Fabricator, so we have a better idea of where we are at. So even if this is not an exhaustive list of all the RFCs that you can find in the corresponding wiki page, at least you can see at a glance that from all the RFCs, there's actually 6 that would be ready to be discussed in a day like today. And literally today, RFC API roadmap is the one that is going to be discussed, marked as high priority, while the others are normal. So this is a bit of, we are trying to helping them putting a bit of structure here. Those then, when these RFCs are being discussed, then they will have actions pending, and they will have other tasks depending on this one. So trying to, well, do normal, simple project management related to the RFC. And well, I think that's basically all, unless you have questions or comments. If not, let me say 2 things. One thing is that Guillaume didn't show up because during this month he moved to another team. Well, he basically now reports directly to Eric Müller. His role is senior analyst. I forgot. I know what he's. I know very well what he's doing. I don't know I don't remember now the.
I think he's something like big fromage for intent strategy or something.
Okay, now this sounds too frivolous, but in any case, he's there to do what he knows to do very well, which is that A, observe a situation and analyze it very well, communicate what's good, wrong, etc. that situation, and apply the immense background he has on Wikimedia history. Basically supporting new developments, new features under the product umbrella. And Sumana, this is literally your last day at the foundation. So, well, thank you very much for everything, and yeah, I'm sure we'll see you around.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to say last words to close the meeting, Sumana?
Meeting's over. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, very good. Thank you.